and welcome back to Rugby Rodeo. I'm Sara Svoboda, and I'm joined by my friend Emma Swords, as you'll remember from last week.
They had us back.
We haven't been kicked off yet.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. In case you tuned in and were expecting to hear Ellie and Jess, we'll remind you that they're off competing at the Women's Rugby World Cup that kicks off this Friday for England, so they are busy with those duties. But it's exciting to announce that we'll be catching up with them over the course of the tournament, so stay tuned for that.
And last episode, we spoke all about the Red Roses, because why not? And how they are current favourites to take the Rugby World Cup title. But their biggest rivals, I think we covered quite a bit, maybe because you were in the room, or you are in the room still. And we said that Canada are very much in competition for that title as well.
Yeah, I think it's been so exciting to hear Canada continue to be brought up in that conversation. I think it's always been something that's been in my mind as a previous player, but it's cool to see that that's now percolating amongst other cultures. I walked into the Quins players' change room the other day, and they had a flip chart up getting girls to mark off who they thought would be at what stage in the tournament, quarters, finals. And I was really pleased to see a lot of the girls had their hand up behind Canada. So it's definitely gaining a lot of traction, and the girls have fully deserved it. They've been doing super well over the last few tours and games.
Yeah, Canada have definitely benefited from the strength and depth that they've really developed, because they've been able to play in the PWR. They've come over. They've then been exposed to so much more rugby than they would have back home, with probably a lot less games under their belt. We've got things like the PWR Cup fixtures, which obviously then tag on to the actual tournament of the PWR. And I think if we were talking so much about Red Rose's strength, a real strength in their armoury is the fact that they have such good depth to then finish off the last 30 minutes of a game. So that's definitely going to help Canada's chances if they do come against England or any of the other top teams, that they do have a very solid bench to then come on and compete with still. For
sure. I think Gabby Senft, who's a fellow Canadian, was on the podcast with you three, I think on the first season, and she mentioned that kind of lack in infrastructure in Canada. Unfortunately, after you play your university rugby, you're kind of looking around, asking yourself where you go for that next level. And the answer has been to join these types of leagues. And I think that's really paying off for us. You're seeing girls like Dalika Menon and Tyson Bukaboom, girls with some of the largest number of caps on our team, really being pushed by that younger generation. And each tour, I think people are excited to see like who's pushing for that back row jersey, that type 5 jersey. I think there is so much better competition there, and it is so exciting to see that evolution of younger players. We've seen Julia Amokuale just been called up. Unfortunately, Pam Buisa suffered an injury. Wishing her all the best and hope she's able to recover. But it's been exciting to see Julia's trajectory. I know a bunch of us met her a couple years ago at a camp, and her trajectory into that lineup has been incredible. And again, you're right. Like, I think it's so cool to see that those players are pushing for those top spots, even at the young ages they are.
And you absolutely have now got a much more solid base with your 10, your 12, your 15 linking up. You've got Gally at 10, Tessier at 12. Julia Shell's been unbelievable at 15, and she's like little offload, and she is so darty. She's such like a little fly, and then off and create something from nothing. That's why she's done so well at Ealing, because especially in our first year at Ealing, we had a very creative way of playing. Our attack was very creative, and it suited her to a T. She's just such an athlete, and I think if you have that 10, 12, 15 set in any squad, you definitely can then just unleash your 13s, your other back three players, and direct those big old farm girls around the pitch.
I agree. I think solidifying that combination has been huge for the Canadian success. Like you said, Julia's been absolutely instrumental in commanding that back line and just injecting herself in those exact right moments. I forget who they were playing, but she ran a textbook, Y-line 2v1, put Sarah Maud LaChance, our winger, in the corner. And you're just like, the confidence she's playing with is so incredible to see now that she's kind of solidified what spot she's in. And like you mentioned, those two names are, nothing to skip over. Alex Tessier, we can't say enough good things about how she's been developing. And same with Claire Gallagher, just really finding her own in this league. She stood out for Tigers last year. Now she's made the move to Ealing, I believe, so that's going to be a dangerous
all of the Canadians, basically.
Yeah.
Jules is like, come to mama.
Yeah. She honestly is in the coach's ear for sure, the attack coach saying, do you really want things to click? Because I think we found the right kind of combination here. But yeah, it's been so exciting to see them solidify in those positions and just run away with things for sure.
And their opening match, Fiji, they would not have had as much exposure, guaranteed, or that the Canadians would have had in the PWR and the other fixtures, other international fixtures. However, I think there's something so exciting about when you have a team like Fiji. The world hasn't had them in the shop window. You don't know what they've been playing like. Basically, they're coming in and undoubtedly will score some outlandish tries, have probably the best offload game. And Zoe Harrison said the last time England played them, she said, without doubt, was the sorest I had ever been post rugby match. And I think for anyone watching it, you tune in because everyone loves to watch Fiji. I think we all we're secretly huge Fiji fans. Like when Fiji beat England men, I think most fans were actually so happy to see that. And then undoubtedly their skill set's unbelievable. They play with no fear. They're just such a refreshing team to watch. So I think it's going to be such a spectacle that most people will tune in to see that Canadian game. So actually we can thank Fiji for how many viewers Canada will probably get.
Thank you. Yeah. No, that's such a good point. I think they're such an electric and exciting team to watch. I know the last time we played them, we were tested pretty good at the end of the first half. It was 0-0, and I think Kevin Rouet, our head coach, had to give us a bit of a shake, but they bring such an exciting brand of rugby. It's in their blood as well. Like they're playing it on the beaches, and you're right, they're throwing those no fear, no look offloads, and it's just a really exciting brand that, you're right, I don't think people get to be exposed to every day with a lot of the structure that we see in the Northern Hemisphere. And if my memory serves me correct, I think they won like team of the tournament last World Cup. Like people just love them.
Yes.
Like they're going to make such an impact just by inspiring girls to be throwing sunny bills and doing crazy chip and chases. Like it's going to be cool to see what they show up with. It continues to evolve every time you see them play.
And they smash a sing-song.
They do.
They smash a sing-song. All their media basically is some like chart-topping tune they've managed to whack out in the bus.
It's not,
filmed, gone viral.
It's not even casual karaoke. Like these girls are harmonizing. Like they're hitting notes that none of us could dream of. And it's, we sing our Shania on the bus, but we can't hold a flame to what they're doing. It's incredible. Such an inviting part of their culture. They're just so warm and welcoming, and that comes through with those kind of traditions as well.
Yeah, something very refreshing for the rugby world.
A little bit of spice.
So obviously we've hyped up Canada, but there's no disputing that from your own personal journey of being involved in the squad, you're not there this World Cup, and I think it's testament to you that from a fellow club teammate at Harlequins, you've picked yourself up from not being selected in that Pack 4, and that in itself was a whole whirlwind for you. You'd moved club, didn't have anywhere to live, and that's not throwing shade on Quins. They did have a place for you, but you know, everyone would predict that you would be selected for that Pack 4, and I guess this year will be kind of tough for you because you're a competitive athlete to then watch Canada play in the World Cup.
Yeah, I think I've been all over the emotional spectrum with that, and I think it's been a roller coaster over the past few years, maybe from, post WXV1, the very first tournament, to now, that I've been riding with injury. I feel like I've been a bit injury prone over the last few years. I hate to say it, but that has been some of the cards I've been dealt, and I think I am at a place where I am so grateful to be supported by such a great club and meet amazing people like you and the girls that I have at Loughborough Lightning and Quins. And I think for me, something that's really resonated, I think I have to give credit to my mom for this one. She says, okay, you get bitter or you get better. And that's something that really resonated with me. I'm like, that's so true. Like I can sit here and be frustrated about the injury or, then returning from injury and still not being selected and, kind of dig myself a hole and be frustrated. But there is so much exciting rugby to be had in this country still. It's hard to ignore the fact that this is, being touted as the biggest World Cup to date, and I so desperately want to be there with all my teammates, but I have a job to do to, do really well for Quins and put us in the best space for this year. And then at the same time, that's only going to help me, put my hand up for future selection. And I think that's something that's been really positive, that I have such a strong relationship with our coach. And I don't think many people feel that you're ever truly out of the conversation. I think he's done a really good job with making athletes or players, feel that as long as you're putting that work in and you continue to show up and put yourself in the best place to play, you can't get overlooked if you're doing what you do well day in, day out and continuing to develop those skills. So, a bit of a mix of emotions for me. Like, I think I'm at like a mature age where I was able to understand, the time was against me a bit with injury return and it wasn't looking likely. But that's not to say, when I heard the exact words out of my coach's mouth that I didn't, call my twin a minute later and have a little ball sesh. Like we have to feel our feelings. And like I said, I think just being in this kind of environment helps you move on quickly and just understand that it's not the end of the world. There is more rugby to be played, and that rugby leads you to great people and future opportunities. But you also have an interesting perspective from club and an international side of selection, non-selection, riding those waves and that roller coaster. How's that been for you over your career?
I think for the women's game, and I can only talk from personal experience, is that being an international might seem like the absolute penultimate goal for most players. Who are you if you're not an international? Well, you're known as the non-internationals at club or the internationals at club. And rightly so, these girls work incredibly hard to be in that position. I went for Welsh camp, and I was definitely not at a point in my life where that was working for me. I was balancing jobs, I was trying to get money in, and at that time, even they hadn't been given contracts then, so we were still training late at night. So I'd be at work at 5:30 in the morning and then drive from Guildford to the Vale in Cardiff, and we wouldn't get onto the pitch until really about 6 o'clock at night. So they were long days, and obviously Wales have done an incredible job with helping players out with contracts and so on for the last couple of years. But for me at that time, it didn't work, and I was at sort of like a really low point. And I had some really good scrum halves to then battle out with Kira Bevan and Fionn Lewis at the time. And I think at that time where I was with my maturity, my goals and so on, I just wasn't in a great headspace to then also break into a new team. Women are very, they're quite territorial around their positioning, and having someone new into the team, we know how women work. Yes, we're welcoming, but we're pretty dogged with keeping our own position and shirt. And I just didn't have that strength in me at that time to see it through. And I kind of thought to myself, that's enough for international. It wasn't going to work for me right then and there. And then the season or 2 seasons later, Ireland contacted me, and I was really debating about going into Irish camp. I was an older player. I was like 27 at the time, and losing things like your EQP status, which is your English qualified status, which is actually very, very valuable in the PWR if you're not an international player. Things like that are up for discussion. You become less valuable in the Premiership because they're trying to keep the Prem as English as possible, minus the influx. But yeah, I flew over to Ireland. I made that choice. But there was, you're trying to break into a whole new realm of women again, a system. At the time, not many Irish players were playing in the PWR. So again, they've got very strong friendships, and rightly so. And I just had a very interesting time there. I felt like the support staff were incredible. The girls were actually really, really lovely. And I did manage to get my cap, which at the time I felt was like the penultimate goal. But the journey there was not easy, and it shouldn't be easy, because to get a shirt for any international team is a hard journey, and it should be hard. But again, for whatever reason, it wasn't resonating with me, and I don't mind working hard. It's why I've stayed in the game for so long, but it didn't resonate with me. I was like, this should feel a lot sweeter than than it is. And I think talking on behalf of a lot of women who will never play international rugby, I guess just having that reassurance that you are valuable, and the Premiership and rugby doesn't mean that you are not worthy to be there if you are not an international player. So much hype is put on internationals because it's definitely the platform which has grown the game. It's an end goal, to be the best in any position. But for some people that doesn't resonate. That's not your why. And I think for many years I tried to force that. But I'm very much at peace now that I just really enjoy being a club player. I've got other things in my life that I want to focus on, and that is actually very much okay to where I am now. So yeah, it was a roller coaster. You've got a lot of people's opinions to deal with. There was a tweet that came out from Squidge Rugby which really did not land well. It was like, she's gone to Wales, didn't conquer, never conquered England, now she's going over to Ireland and gonna get a shirt. And I just know how women talk. I know how that would feel. It's like, who is this girl coming in and thinking no, that was not my tweet. I don't even have Twitter. And that kind of went around. And I just think there's a lot of pressure to being an international player, and that means you're worthy to then be or known as a good player. But so I guess, yeah, it was a roller coaster of learning who I am within the game.
I think that's such a good point you bring up about like that identity, almost like so much of us tie that into it. And I think that's been probably a test for both of us recently, like not having been involved in our respective sides. Like you do get so tied up in that identity of, oh, I'm an international, or I'm a, Canadian international, Welsh, Irish, whatever it is. And when you strip it all back, you're like, well, no, because I have all these other facets to who I am. And if somebody asked me to create like a pie chart or graph of what makes me, like that is a wedge, but there's so many other aspects that feed into my identity. And I think that's why, yeah, it's so huge to come back to the club level and just get that perspective of like, I think our coaches a lot of the time ask us our why, and it is so important to bring that up in, individual player development meetings. We talk about it. Sometimes we'll have players stand up at the front of the room and talk about it. And that is such a driving force between or for the reason why we come back and play and love thriving at that level. But it made me think as well, that point you made about kind of the fulfillment. We're obviously a rugby podcast, not a golf podcast, but Scotty Scheffler, who's one of the best golfers in the world right now, look it up if you can, anyone on YouTube. He talks about winning, I forget which most recent professional tournament it is, but he kind of just has this big exhale and he's like, yeah, it was great to win, but like, you guys are going to come back at me next week and say, okay, now the US Open. And it's always what's next. Yep. And I think a lot of the time we forget to like live in that moment of what's driving us in that exact moment. Like, is it, in the second row, just grabbing onto your second row partner being like, I wouldn't want to be anywhere else putting my head in this uncomfortable gap. Or I wouldn't want to be anywhere else other than, throwing my head into the middle of a mall. And it's those like micro moments of why we love it. And the pinnacle and the peak of things like hoisting a World Cup trophy or being named to a dream team is huge, but it does have to come back to like what drives you. And I think his speech was so important because he's like, I think he just put that question out there, like, why do I want to be like the best in this sport, or why do I want to keep winning these tournaments? He's like, family and relationships and teammates and all these things are the really fulfilling bits, and the victories are so sweet, but they only last for so long. So you really have to dig deeper to what's driving me every day. And like you said, like being able to be a multifaceted, versatile person with, business and a life outside of rugby is huge to keep that perspective. But yeah, roller coaster is the word for
it's
sure.
A roller coaster.
So we've covered my Canadian crew. We would be remiss to not give a good chunk of time to talk about the Black Ferns. Those girls have really been onto something since their last World Cup victory. They have a lot of youngsters coming in, as we said last week, some sevens players coming in and out. What's your take on them so far? Before we get into the nitty-gritty, what's kind of standing out for you in that camp?
But they obviously play with a lot of flair still. I think having that influx of sevens players is going to be huge because they've been exposed to even more rugby. We've spoken about like the Southern Hemisphere teams maybe not getting as much club rugby or as much exposure, but clearly the Black Ferns having a lot of that sevens players exposure. They've had Olympics to play in and other tournaments and so on. So, and they are just unbelievable athletes. So you're playing with a lot of flair. You've then also had the injection of Kelly Brazier's back.
Let's go, girl.
Like, what? I remember, how old was I? I think I was 17. I went to go and watch her play, and they beat Ireland in 2014 in the France World Cup. And the fact that she's then fast forwarding 11 years to then play in one of the best teams in the world, again, is just like huge kudos to her. And then obviously Portia Woodman is back, named as #1 player in the world at the moment. So you can't dismiss that they have got a ton of experience with this injection of a lot of youngsters and the Sevens girls. It's just how well can they gel that together? You've had England play Six Nations, World XVs. I know obviously so have New Zealand, but that Six Nation is so important before going into a World Cup campaign. Exposure, time on feet, minutes together, gelling all that new influx. How can they pin that together? I don't think you can take away the fact that they're incredibly athletic. They are very physical. Some of those, forwards they've got, but then even you've got the Letitia on the wing and so on. They are strong all over the park. It's just how do you get that gel together?
I think you hit the nail on the head there. It is really about consistency, and the whole is greater than the sum of their parts with that team. They have so many incredible individual standout players, but it really will be about how they bring that together, because we see that in teams like England. There's so many individuals that you can call out, but they do fit so nicely and like mechanically together that it works out so well. So it will be an order for them, like a tall order. Like we said, I think people have this misconception that they play so much rugby over there. They definitely pick up a ball when they're super young and they have their hands on the ball maybe as much as England girls, but as far as it goes in terms of high level, they don't get as many games as we think they do. And then Pac 4 is maybe a tournament where they get together in the odd test against Australia, but I think you're right, that competition with Six Nations is so irreplaceable. I think that's something that nations outside of that are always really eager to get some similar structure to get just as many games. But it will be so interesting to see how that comes together. And the older girls, it's so exciting to say Kelly Brazier's name again. It's been said millions of times on the Sevens circuit, and she's obviously put her hand up multiple times at World Cups for 15s, but it will be so exciting to hear that name and Portia get called up amongst the likes of some of these youngsters.
I know, like Braxton Sorensen McGee, 18 years old, has lit up for them. In any of the games that you watch, she's involved. There's always a highlight reel of some sort. So linking that up with the strength and experience of Portia Woodman, Wycliffe, again, it will be exciting. It will be exciting to watch them play if they gel it together. But then also it's like, what do they need to gel together? Their DNA is flair. It's tough. They don't stop. They're relentless. So maybe we're just trying to think too much of a PWR mechanical system. Maybe that is just what works for them, and they will test a defence for sure. It's just making sure that I think they just need to box a little bit smarter with things. Other contenders, who are we looking out for? I'm going to say 2, France and most definitely Ireland.
France is so exciting. I think we sang their praises last week with Bourdon Sansu, but I want to kind of get into their captain, Manu Falou, and her younger sister, Tiani, who plays in the back row. I think she's been an absolute standout. There's obviously been a lot of chat around her sister taking over the captaincy, but I'm really impressed with her younger sister and what she can do in the back row. So it'll be exciting to see how she comes out. Also, the youth they have across the park. Kelly Arbe, she's only 20, I believe. Rugby Pass put out a, look out for these youngsters, and she was on there. And I remember her being incredible against England in that near loss, the last game of Six Nations.
Yeah.
And equally, Joanna Grise, I believe she has a Sevens background. She is pretty decorated in that side of things. I feel like we keep talking about these Sevens girls, and she's going to be pretty threatening on the wing. I think, again, in that game that they narrowly lost, or they did lose to England, but she put in such a shift, really testing the England backline. And I think we said it last week, like, can't count them out. They're so exciting to watch. Like, the jouet is so rife in that team, and it's something that a lot of teams, I think, want to borrow from and have bits and pieces into their own game. But it makes them such an exciting team to watch, and whoever they're up against, they just bring such flair. But we were talking about how strong Ireland's been and their, collection of players that are up and coming, and we're seeing some move into the PWR now. What do you make of them, and what will be kind of the secret recipe for them to see success at this tournament?
Ireland have, from the last couple of years, absolutely blossomed. Again, injection of sevens players, that has most definitely helped them out. But then you've had Dana O'Brien. She has really grown into that fly half jersey. Super young. And then you have the likes of Aoife Wafer. She stepped up massively. She was a centre, came back as a back rower, blown people out the water when she's on the pitch. So, and they just play a far more smarter game, I think. Now you've got a huge boot of Dana O'Brien. I don't think they're going to mess about, trying to get into too many upfront battles. They know, play in the other half, see what chances you can make, and put the pressure on and get it into Aoife Wafer's hand.
Truly, I was watching the highlights of the WXV in Canada this past season, and Aoife was huge in that victory. I think she had 2 tries. She's just so hard to stop. I haven't played against her, but it appears off the back of the scrum. She's so lethal. I think the hooker battle as well with Niamh Jones, and you're going to have to help me with Maloney's first name because I'm going to butcher this.
Call her Clee.
Clee?
Yep.
Clee and Niamh are just such athletic hookers around the park. They are also so clinical when it comes down to it, and I think they tested New Zealand in such a way that you can see the shock on their faces when they were dotting down 2-3 times, winning that game by a couple points, finishing second in WXV1. They're going to be a team to be reckoned with at this tournament.
That's what I mean. They've literally come out of WX3 and then number 2 in WX1. That has been such a quick turnaround for them. So very, very exciting. And then Australia. They've had a lot of players in the PWR. They have a huge mixture of youth and experience, and then they've even left out players like Bella McKenzie. Personally, think that's very controversial. I think she's an absolute solid 10-12 option, comes with a lot of experience. When played with her at Quins, unbelievable player. They've left her out, so they're clearly backing with what they have, and it'd be really, really interesting to see what they come out with in the tournament.
For sure. I think that's so tough to see someone that's flourished and done so well in the PWR to be left out of that tournament. But again, I think it's exactly what you said there. They're backing the combinations they have. It'll be tough to not see Kaslik involved because she was so instrumental for them over those past few games. But we still have the likes of Maya Stewart on the edge. She's an incredible winger. I think she's put her hand up for dream teams and, just the stats that girl is able to put up.
Scissor,
Yes.
Yeah. She shared a clip of Maya with that unbelievable try. I think it was against Wales.
People and
Bosch doing roly-polies, then scores this worldy try.
She shared it?
Yes.
Scissor,
I'm pretty sure it was Scissor. And Maya was because Maya, by all accounts, loves 50 Cent. I think we connect on that level. But I think she was like, oh my God, this badass has just shared my try. I'm sure it was Scissor. I know it was one of those.
I need to look this up immediately after. That's
rap queens.
Incredible. One time, Drake, our Canadian, shouted out like a Canadian swimmer, and we're like, oh my God, what do we have to do to get that? That is so cool.
That's called touching off there. You're just trying to rope the Canadians in with Drake there, but fine, whatever.
We love him. But no, I think she's going to be super impressive. Desiree Miller has been solid on the wing.
Yeah.
So we've touched on Canada, Ireland, France, New Zealand, a bunch of contenders. We're back to the Red Roses, who kick off the tournament in a big way in Sunderland.
Yeah, the most marketed event. You've got Red Roses, world number 1 team, versus Ilona Mark. No, I'm joking. Versus the Eagles, obviously. But yeah, well done marketing team on that one. You will get tens of thousands to that event, and rightly so. It's the start of the biggest tournament for women's rugby ever. So what an exciting spectacle to be at. I wish we could be there.
I love a Friday Night Lights.
Yep.
We'll have duties the next day, but it's going to be so exciting to get people from all walks of life to that stadium. It's obviously pretty far for us, so we unfortunately can't head there, but it's going to be so exciting to see our Rugby Rodeo gals take the field.
People are asking, do you think the Eagles, USA, can they rock the Red Roses? I'm just going to put it out there. I don't think so from previous games that they have played. Do I think they'll fight to the end? Absolutely. Do I think they've got unbelievable players all over the park? Absolutely. But I just think, again, it's that depth that the Red Roses have. I just think it will be a real tough challenge for the rest of USA to then step up into that competitive collision with England.
For sure. I think, again, they've done a great job to ship a lot of their players overseas, and we've seen Exeter really benefit from a lot of those Eagles, and Loughborough Lightning has gained quite a few. So it's exciting to see them in and amongst the likes of these English girls. But England is just too well drilled, and I think where USA has that similar athleticism to Canada, they do lack a bit of that IQ and structure that England really brings to a tournament. And I think in the last few games, we've seen them have a good push at the start of a game, but once England settles into a game and gets comfortable, they kind of run away with it. But exciting things to see, the likes of Alona Mar, my good buddy from Lightning, below Matatonga, Alev Kelter, just some big names that we've seen across the 15s and 7s realm come together in this one venue for an exciting Friday Night Lights. I think there's nothing better. You can't beat it.
And no one will be able to deny that. The Red Roses will be thinking this exact same thing. We need superstars in our game, like for more fans, more following, way more viewers. Alona has done an unbelievable job in creating that, and it would be really exciting to see what superstars rugby can now generate with the help. Alona has put so many of her teammates out on her TikTok, on her Instagram. Some people will think that kind of detail is a bit fluffy, should be more about the rugby and so on. But we are still such a developing game, the women's game. This is the penultimate pedestal for the game to be on. And I don't think you can take away that things like ticket sales to these events are down to people like Alona, who are creating such big fan bases. It done Bristol wonders in the Premiership that she was there. So
I think she increased their social media following
I think it
fourfold or something.
Yeah, it was like 100,000
overnight.
Yeah,
ridiculous.
Yep.
So she's done great things.
So please buy into the fact that superstars need to be created for this game to fly.
100%.
Don't hate the TikToks.
Don't hate it. It's where the world is going, and I think it gives that personality, that behind the scenes, what's the reality of a World Cup, because I think it's like fans have their face pressed up against the glass, and now they're almost being invited like behind that curtain a little bit of like, this is what we get up to on an off day. This is what, you know, the glamour of a social media day looks like, or like a headshot day, you know, with Alona with her iconic lipstick look. Yep. Like, I think it is cool that she's sharing that with a lot of her teammates and getting those personalities out there, because when you really connect with like something you're watching, like a show or a movie, like you want to be rooting for the characters, and it's the same thing in sport. Like you want to have somebody to back, and I think she did an incredible job giving rugby a shout out at the ESPYs when she won her award. She's like, I think word for word, she's like, a lot of you might not know in this room, it's filled with obviously the best athletes in the world, but there's, the biggest event in women's rugby is this year. Like, get behind it, go watch it. Like, let's grow the game, because in North America, it's not quite there yet. And it's not as big. And to get people caring about it, like you're saying, like SZA sharing a reel, like it'll just be so cool to see athletes really buy into such an exciting sport. Obviously, we're biased, but we think you'll be right when you watch it. So, some quick fire predictions. We both had wide eyes looking over this because a lot of these questions are going to be hard to answer, but the people want to know, who's going to be the nation that will come out and surprise everyone? Who's going to have those performances where jaws are on the floor after this tournament?
I am going to root for Ireland on that one. I think, like we discussed earlier, the injections of sevens, what they've done in WXV1 and Six Nations and so on, I think they have been given enough time to get together and put some really good performances in. So I am going to root for Ireland.
I think I want to back you up on that one. I'll double down with you on that. I have one of my best friends who I played at Loughborough Lightning with, Jill Burke, is now in the setup as an analyst with Australia, and she comes from that 2010 and a little bit before era where they shocked New Zealand. And I think it's almost like the page is turning again for them to rewrite some really exciting history of, tapping into that strength. We saw between that period, 2010 to now, where they maybe weren't as strong and they maybe didn't do as well as some World Cups, but I think they're back onto something really exciting with some of the exciting back row, hooker, center combinations. And yeah, I feel good things are in their future.
Top try scorer.
This one's hard. I feel like hookers really cut their teeth at a tournament like this, and as long as, you know, their 10s and whoever's kicking for touch gets them in the right area and they can be clinical, it's a really cool platform for them to run away with. But we obviously have our kind of more obvious answers of our back three, like our Ellies and our Portias. We can't deny that those two have a nose for the try line. I think we shared a video, Rugby Rodeo shared a video the other day of her top 5 PWR tries, and some of them she's just skinning people that are just as fast as her, if not maybe a little bit quicker, and the ability for Ellie to put tries away is scary. So we might see our girl up there.
I'm going to go Meg Jones.
Love it. Yep.
Such an aloof runner. Front football from England's forwards. I'm going to go for Meg.
I back it. I'll go Amy Cockayne.
Understood. I get it.
Period.
They've got a great driving maul. Who makes the final?
I, in my heart, believe we will see Canada and England. I think they'll both handle their pools really well, and those quarters and semis will be such a true test. But I think these are two teams that know what they're about and are on such a forward momentum, such a streak, and getting so comfortable with each other. Like we talked about, all those combinations from England and Canada. I think this is their moment. I feel like both these teams have really been building towards this, so I'd love to see that.
I am going to back you on that one as well. England, Canada. England have just been too good against all the other teams that they have played against. Canada have had enough time, I think, in both PWR exposure and the performances they've strung together of recent. So that's who I am backing. But who wins it?
Do you want to answer first?
I think England. Again, I've just said it then. I think Canada have every right to, and I think they can. But if we're putting our necks on the line, it's in England. England win this year.
I'm going to stick with my Canadian girls. Like, I think they've been on such a trajectory. The heartbreak we had in 2022, losing to England by 7 points in that semi, that felt like our final. And then we went on to be pretty disappointed with our bronze game. I think the girls have just been trending in the right direction. I think we challenge teams in a really exciting way. And I think when you show up to that game, if that is who it's against, you have to just put history aside and say who's showing up better on the day. And I think they've put themselves in a really strong place. It will be a fight to the end if it is those two. Obviously, it'll be a fight to the end, whoever gets there, based on how the tournament goes. But I see that being an incredible game of rugby that we talk about for the rest of time. And I hope our girls come out on the other side, but it will be quite the game.
At a sold-out event.
Yes.
Which is just going to be unbelievable. Okay, who wins player of the tournament?
These questions are so hard.
I'm going to jump in.
Yes, please do.
Okay, I'm so split. It's I think Maud Muir, Sarah Byrne, Meg Jones have all been outstanding as number one team in the world.
When you said Meg for most tries, like my mind, my like neurons were lighting up, because she is just such an X Factor player that consistently shows up for this team.
She's been electric. She's taken that. It's not just like stepping up against whatever team. She plays so freely,
so confidently. I think people forget that she was pivotal for England in the 2017 World Cup, for Ireland as well. And then she's had her 7th stint, but she never looks like she misses a step between one or the other. And yeah, it's like sometimes confidence is what it's all about. And she's got heaps of that. And her ability on both sides of the ball. Yeah, I just think.
But then you're going like front row and you cannot like dispute how important they are.
Mm-hmm. I'm trying to think of
and they play
World
like centres, those two. They're breaking lines left, right and Chelsea.
True,
so
they're like, we
they're
can
not
do
messing
it too.
about. I'm going to go Meg Jones.
Okay. Florence Simons has been
electric,
incredible for Canada. I think there was one tour that I was on and Kevin turned to me and he's like, Flo's been unreal. Watch her. Like she's been so he's like, she's come back from sevens and he was no word of a lie. She is really missed when she's not on the field. Her carving, her slicing and dicing on attack, but then equally putting in shots defensively. I think she's such a versatile player and she brings so much to this team. We've been so fortunate to have her over the last few seasons. And I mean, we could probably throw Liv Apps out there as well, who we said was competing for that nine jersey. She's been a huge personality for our team in terms of social media, but then also delivering on the pitch. So yeah, I'll go with Flo. I think she's peaking at just the right time, and this feels like her tournament.
And Fiji got team of the tournament last time.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I'd love to see that again.
I'd love that for the Spanish girls. They're so exciting. They, like we said last week, they play with such flair. That 10 was like, I'm doing this, that, grubbering through.
Claudia Pena doing her thing every time she's on the pitch, plays with, like you said, the most freedom. So let's see Spain get team of the tournament.
They're so likable. They're so fun. But Fiji might back it up again. Because,
keep the singing and the performances, girls, because we love to see it.
So in other news in the rugby world, we've seen an influx of brands where girls are really forwarding.
Oh, have we?
Their personality. A little bit here and there. We've seen Sarah Byrne. We've seen Meg Jones. We've seen yours truly and a couple of your buddies really push that narrative of, no, this is the kind of clothing we want to put out there to show these girls what rugby can be about, what personalities we want to put forward. It's not just, buy a generic baggy World Cup shirt. Like, we're here to forward things that are important to us and kind of cuts that really speak to the feminine form. But tell us about some of those that you've been seeing.
Well, thanks for dropping in the business. But essentially, below the shoulder is our new brand, and Jess Breach, Zoe Harrison, Sarah Byrne and myself come together, and I guess like any business, you go, what's the problem, what's missing, so on. And I really thought you can't go to a rugby match and support rugby without wearing either a club bought shirt or an oversized tee. And don't get me wrong, love an oversized tee. But I was like, right, I want to create a brand that is going to turn heads, to speak a different narrative and actually show off the female form. A lot of the time, I think we have been given an amazing platform for inclusivity. But whenever we steer towards the feminine form or anything being relatively sexy or feminine, it's just a little bit, we're still trying to be role models. But that misses out a huge portion of women rugby fans or sports fans that still want to be able to wear a really cool pair of trousers, jeans, a cool jacket, a skirt, knee-high boots, trainers, whatever they want to wear, with just something like a basic baby tee. For people who don't know what a baby tee is, just a slightly smaller, tightly fitting t-shirt. But we've used, rugby-specific slogans. We've made it quite fun. It's supposed to be a little bit spicy, with just creating a new brand, a new look to, I guess, the women's rugby merchandise. And on a whole has been received really, really well. So watch this space. We want to keep pushing this whole new market of what is available for women rugby fans, and hopefully go into the whole sporting world for
branch out. No, we've seen that in other sports, haven't we? With the Together X, everyone watches women's sport, and it's just, pushing those messages that we want to see girls from all over, girls, guys, anyone will take you. Come watch rugby. It's such an inclusive and exciting space. And if we can give you something to feel really confident rocking up to a game and, just, cheering for the sport in general, we'd love to have you. It's, cool to see that evolution of, I have a specific jersey with a number and a name on my back, but now it's about, can I get cheeky with some of these messages? And and just, lean into the rugby culture in a new way. And we're seeing Sara Byrne and Meg I think she came out with Meg Jones' Magic Meg shirts and then Sarah's. So again, it's just another like look behind the curtain and understanding these girls' personalities a bit more. And we love a bit of merch, don't we?
Oh yeah. And maybe it just hasn't been explored before. Sometimes I feel the messaging behind women's sport, or particularly rugby, because we're still very much developing, we're still growing and will be for a number of years. Sometimes I feel like the messages are a bit like, please see us, we are here. It's a little bit like trying to beat the drum of we're making it, we are trying to get hit, but it's like, no, we're here. I think Celia and Meg Jones with the shoot for Magic Meg, it was like, we are here, we always have been here. And that's the message that definitely Below the Shoulder was trying to do. It's like, whoa, we haven't seen women dress like this for a campaign linked to rugby yet. And why can't other people be doing that? The rest of the world are doing it. I know we might be really cliche, but you look at the Kylie Jenners of the world who have been like forward, like such at the forefront of fashion development, looks and so on. And then you go down other women's sports, you've got the likes of the whole of the Lionesses when they do their Vogue campaigns, they're dressing like Leah Williamson just dresses so well, so to her style. And I think it's just really time that the rugby world can cotton onto that as well.
Yeah, I think it's always been so like I work hard, I play hard, and like I look pretty in this space, and I'm like getting down and dirty in this one. But it's like, why can't you throw on a bit of mascara? Alona's run away with her iconic lipstick, and it's cool to see that we can kind of merge that like femininity in rugby and like reclaim that. This is a sidebar, but did you have any thoughts about the opening ceremony outfits? Because that's always, every team gets to suss each other out, like, okay, who's looking good? France has their clean white trainers, you know. Some teams are leaning more into like the business corporate vibe. Like, what did you see anything there that piqued your interest?
Well, I actually really liked Ireland's little like waistcoat number. I thought that was really cute. And I was like, oh, again, just showing off a little bit of a waist.
Get the guns out, girls. Let's go.
Exactly. England, love what they did with the inner lining. However, I just felt like it was just a little bit too corporate. And don't get me wrong, some of the girls, well, actually, I think most of the girls pulled it off so well. We had like different blouses underneath, or I saw Kelsey Clifford. She had she turned her t-shirt into a crop, and obviously there was the accessory of the scarf, which the girls got very creative with. I think Hannah Bottoman wore it as like a style of a tie. Other girls had it in their hair.
Love that.
So they got a little bit creative with the little chiffon scarf.
Another little insight into personalities, like someone's up on the pony, someone's doing like a Jackie O situation. Very cool to see. Again, like gives that insight into who these girls are, and that little bit of flair. I think Canada had some red ones as well that I've seen as belts and all over the place. So always fun. Sometimes they can give a little like flight attendant, but
I think it was giving a little bit BA, but they are linked to it. So we've got a few shout outs today, but I am just admiring the international
love.
Yes.
Cue it. So we want to make a massive shout out to the Kamloops rugby women's team, who had to deal with an airline strike, unfortunately. Had some delayed flights, but they are headed to England today to support for the Women's Rugby World Cup. So excited to see some Canadian representation.
Shout out to Morley women's team ahead of their first season. Girls, go well, enjoy it. And what an exciting place to start with being your first ever season. That's impressive.
They're striking while the iron's hot, definitely. And then we also want to give a shout out to the Dundee girls, and they want to shout out their coach, Martin, for being the best. We love that. We love
a coach that just is the best. Need to shout out, love this name, the Littleton Lemons in Colorado, going into their first season as a D2 club. Again, congrats, girls. Enjoy that first season.
And last, we have Lucy, who asked for a shout out for the University of Sussex Women's as they won University Club of the Year.
That's it.
We love to hear it.
We love a winner.
We do.
So guys, thanks again for tuning in. We'll see you again same time next week after the first round of the Women's Rugby World Cup 2025.
Let's go.
It's literally here in a few days.
Let's go.
Yeehaw!